My dear viewer, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, and colleague teachers, once again, this is Mr. Ogada, a teacher of history and government at Alliance High School, coming to you live on this educational platform of top-notch TV programs or educational programs to present a continuation of what we have been looking at in History and Government KCSE 2022 Paper 2 analysis. In the previous presentations, we have looked at, Section A, and we touched on quite a number of issues that are very, very important in that section. Now, this is now going to be a presentation on Paper 2, Section B. And I'm going to tackle this section in two different parts. In the first presentation, I will be presenting question 18 and question 19. And then in the second presentation, I will tackle question 20 and question 21. Then, of course, I hope you'll still be glued. You cannot miss out on the analysis or revision of Section C of this paper. And therefore, as I begin, as usual, I want to say the following about Section B. You are provided with 4 questions, and the examiner gives an instruction that out of those 4 questions, you choose 3 of your best, 3 that can score you more marks. So, meaning you have your 4, but you only choose 3. And what do we mean when we say that you choose 3? I want to give an illustration. For example, we have question 18, which has both part A and part B. Question 19, the same, part A and part B. Question 20, the same, part A, part B, all the way up to question 21. If you choose to do a particular number, let's say question 18, you must do both part A and part B. Students sometimes normally rush to begin a question. For example, they see part A of the question is very easy. Then they rush and begin answering, only for them to realize that by the time they are coming to part B, they're not able to move forward because part B is difficult maybe compared to part A. Therefore, it requires that you take your time. Take your time for a question that you're going to choose. A question that you're going to choose, it's important that you see how to balance, that you can get marks in part A of the question and part B of also the question. Don't be, don't rush and choose a particular question because one section of it is easy. We've seen students, as we mark your papers, that sometimes a student simply come and does question 18A. Then they come and do question 19B. Then they come and do question 20A. And then they say they have done 3 questions. No. If you choose a question, you're supposed to do both part A of it and part B of it. That is what makes a question complete. Again, the questions we are going to see here, they are questions that will require a high order thinking, There are higher questions compared to the questions that we saw in Section A. So your clarity of thought should be very, very clear. Now, let's begin by looking at question number 18A. Question number 18A has been drawn from identify 5 forms of written source of information on history and government. Identify 5 forms of written sources of information on history and government. Now, this question is drawn from the topic Introduction to History and Government in Form 1 work. Remember, I mentioned that our first topic in paper 1 is introduction. Our first topic in paper 2 is introduction. So this topic will apply for both paper 1 and paper 2. In this case, the examiner chose to bring it in paper 2, and you are being asked about the sources of information on history and government, and then their focus was on written sources. Remember, we have written sources, we have unwritten sources, and then we have electronic sources. So what are the forms of written sources of information on history and government? One, we have magazines, newspapers, books, also called novels, constitutions, plays or pamphlets. All of them mean the same thing, so you only pick one. Then we have diaries, we have biographies, also substituted with autobiographies. We have a long list there, reports or newsletters or letters or official government reports, or also called gazette. Please note that these terminologies is marked as 1 point, because you'll find somebody writing Roman 1 reports, Roman 2 newsletters, Roman 3 no. All these points is marked as 1 point, so you only choose one. Then we have the journals, documentaries are also written sources. We have rock art, also called painting, or the stone tablets or the clay tablets, pictures or photographs. All these again marked as 1 point. Then we have manuscripts, the scrolls or the parchments, archives, periodicals, maps. We have maps or charts. Now, this is where we now bring the emphasis that as you revise, you can never fail to peruse through past KCSE examination questions, and more so paying attention to the answers provided by NEC. For you to be safe as a candidate in your revision, always try to familiarize with past KCSE examination questions. And in your familiarization, please also don't fail to consult past KCSE answers. And of course, you always know, I've always told you on this platform that I'm the author of KCSE Made Familiar, History and Government. That booklet basically handles the past KCSE questions and their answers. So therefore, you can be able to consult such a kind of a text, because if you use these other books that we have everywhere in the street, there's a likelihood of a book having these answers split into different points. So you find that the booklet has so many answers, but these answers are simply split from what NEC advises us to use as our marking point. So therefore, it is imperative. It is imperative that take your time, go through these sources again. Remember, there are quite a number. Go through these sources again and try to master, have a mastery of these different points. Those that mean the same, you will know this one is also referred to as this and this. Then you will be very, very safe. No wonder this platform gives you a very wonderful opportunity, because you are now able to interact with these key things, key points that are very, very pertinent in your good performance. Question 18B. Explain 5 disadvantages of electronic sources of information on history and government. Again, like part A of this question 18, I said it is drawn from the topic Introduction to History and Government, Form 1 work, topic 1. Remember, we mentioned the written source in part A. Now the examiner is asking about electronic source. Remember, we have 3 sources. We have the written source, unwritten source, and then we have electronic sources. So maybe next time, you never know, they can now shift their attention to ask about the unwritten sources. But for this case now, we are asking ourselves, you explain 5 disadvantages of electronic sources of information on history and government. Answer number 1 on disadvantage: they require power to operate, which may not be available in some places. As simple as that. Any electronic gadget requires power. It requires some source of energy, electricity here and there, electricity to operate. So if in case you are traveling maybe from a point A to point B, and then unfortunately your phone switches off, you don't have a backup, maybe in the name of a power bank, or you didn't carry along your charger, you're going to be in the dark. because that gadget cannot operate without a source of power. Number two, they may contain inaccurate information, thereby misleading the user. We've seen so many, electronic sources of information that carry malicious information that are not true. Somebody simply decides to, stage forth a blackmail against you, and they publish something that is not right, and then it circulates electronically on all our social media platforms. It will be to your disadvantage. Number three, they are expensive to acquire, maintain, thus making them out of reach to many people. Very, very expensive to acquire or also to maintain. And therefore, for you to own that quality mobile phone, that quality, electronic gadget, it also comes along with the responsibility of, spending more for you to get the quality that you want. Then they may be addictive to the users, like the mobile phones, televisions, hence leading to antisocial behaviors. I know maybe you could be a victim, addicted to the use of mobile phones as a student. That takes a lot of your holiday time that you cannot be able to now to focus on doing your assignments or doing your personal studies. Television. Some of you are glued to your TVs from morning to evening. You don't mind doing your assignments or doing what is supposed to be done. And therefore, these are disadvantage of using electronic sources. And some of these end up affecting our behaviors. Hence, we develop antisocial behaviors. What is an example of antisocial behavior? Everybody is seated in a house. Instead of people engaging in interactive talks, people, sharing good stories as a family, you find everybody is glued to their phones. Everybody is just, people are in their own worlds. That is an antisocial behavior. You just want to isolate yourself and focus on, perusing through the internet and, getting things that you want to get. That is also a disadvantage of electronic source of information on history and government. Then some may contain biased information or content which distort facts. Yes, biased information or content which distort facts. This also is a disadvantage because somebody may decide to maliciously publish something false about you, and it's there in the internet, it's circulating and moving. By the time you come out to, maybe state correct facts about whatever is circulating, it's too little too late. Too little too late. Therefore, it's also a disadvantage, and therefore it calls for a lot of regulation. Some contain exaggerated information due to ease with which they can be manipulated. We've seen even videos that are video shopped, photos that are photoshopped. Somebody simply manipulates, an individual, and it's getting some image somewhere, then you Photoshop their heads, put it on that person or thing, and then here we go. Things are distorted out there, exaggerated information, manipulated. Then we have some may be used to promote immoral behavior, therefore eroding societal values. This is a good point even to advise you that you will find a number of our youth today are seriously stuck in this menace of pornography watching, pornography. You use those gadgets, you use those electronic sources to access those, sites that are ungodly, if I may say. And at the end of the day, it distorts the moral behavior, the values of the society. So, dear student, as a responsible student, as you use or as you interact with these electronic sources of information, please choose which sites to visit. Avoid these sites that can be able to derail your morality. Then we have some electronic devices may have hazardous or has adverse effects on human health, obesity, hearing, visual challenges. Too much use of these electronic devices is hazardous to human health. hazardous to human health. Of course, that you can be able to tell. You overuse those earphones, it's going to affect your hearing ability. You know, you are so glued onto your screens all the time. You are just watching TV, watching movies. Of course, at the end of the day, you will interfere with your vision. Then we have the disposal of electronic devices causes pollution of the environment. Disposal of electronic devices causes pollution of the environment. That is very true. These things do not decay that easily. And therefore, the environment will be so much polluted with these things everywhere. Assuming somebody will just to carry a whole truck of old, computer devices, then they go and dump them somewhere in a dumping site. It will take ages for these gadgets to be decomposed. What happens to the environment? Pollution. Some electronic devices require experts to operate. Some electronic devices require experts to operate. Again, that is true. You just don't operate any electronic device because it's available to you. You need some, expertise to be able to operate such. Then some electronic devices can only be used where there is network. Again, very, very true. You have your computer, your laptop there. You want to access your email. You cannot access it unless you have internet or network provisions. So therefore, dear student, we continue with question number 18 and still look at the disadvantages of electronic sources of information on this and government point. The next point, number 12, one is likely to lose all information when the device breaks down or crashes. You have your phone with all that stuff in it, then it breaks down, it crashes, or it falls in water. All the information that you had there will be lost. Or in this case, you have your computer, your laptop, it falls, crashes, you lose all that information. Then number 13, electronic devices have promoted fraud in the society, leading to loss of money. Electronic devices have promoted fraud in the society. This is cyber crime, People have used these to manipulate. People have used this to manipulate even, the use of ATMs, mobile banking, things like that. And then you lose your money promoting fraud. Then has promoted hacking, leading to loss or misuse of data. It has promoted hacking, leading to loss or misuse of data. So dear student, those are many, many points on the disadvantages of electronic sources of information on history and government. Remember, part A talked about, the forms of written sources of information. Then part B, the examiner went to the electronic sources and now focused on the disadvantages. Good. We go to number 19, part A. Number 19, part A, state 5 uses of domestic animals during the ancient period. This is from the topic transport. Transport. State 5 uses of domestic animals. This could be we can talk about transport in form 2, but at the same time, it could also be drawn from the topic agriculture. Actually, it more or less focuses on the topic agriculture in form 1 work, topic 3, development of agriculture. So, in this topic, the question was asking state 5 uses of domestic animals during the ancient period. 1, some produced manure, which were used in the farms. 2, some were used for plowing. 3, some provided food or meat or milk. You choose 1 point. Some were used for transport, because that's why I was trying to link it to the topic of transport. Some were used for transport. Some provided security. Some animal skins were used for clothing. We continue. Animal bones were used for making ornaments or needles, weapons, jewelry, scrapping skins. Animal bones were used for all that. Then horns or hooves from some animals were used as containers or utensils. The dog was used for hunting. Animal bones were used as weapons. Animals were used for religious purposes, like, sacrifices, the totems, the totem animals that were used for religious purposes. So those are the many uses of domestic animals that we can talk about during the ancient period. Again, you have all that you can review during your free time. We continue, still we have more points, that animal horns or bones were used for communication. Remember horn blowing, yes? Then some animals were used for companionship, like the cats or the dogs, the friends of man, animal pets that were friendly to man, like the cats. Then we have animals were used as items of trade, exchanging. To get what you didn't have, you give an animal, you get what you don't have as an item. Then some animals were used for sporting activities. The most common one, the horses. The most common and the horses. So those are almost 15 points, just talking about, the uses of domestic animals. As a good student as you are, you take your notes, you now scribble these points. And remember, the confidence that you have is that these points that I'm giving you, they are directly drawn from neck marking schemes. Not just any textbook, neck marking scheme, coordinated neck marking schemes that we used in marking KCSE 2022. As we wind up this part, remember I said we are going to divide this part into two parts, part A and part 1 and part 2. Part 1, question 18, 19. Then now we'll go to part 2 in the subsequent recording to look at question 20 and 21. So as we wind up, question 19b, describe 5 effects of early agriculture on people's way of life. Describe 5 effects of early agriculture on people's way of life. This is drawn from the topic development of agriculture from one work. Development of agriculture. What were the effects of early agriculture? 1, people diversified their activities as some engaged in other skills such as pottery, weaving, blacksmithing. Good. Diversification, where you have some people being farmers, some doing things like pottery, others weaving, blacksmithing. That is called diversification of economic activities. Number 2, urbanization or trading centers developed, which served as markets for agricultural products. Number 3, human population grew steadily due to increased food production or increased fertility rates. So with increased food production, it led to the increase in human population. Then a new class of people or social stratification developed due to increased prosperity. The rich, the middle, then the poor, that new class. But our focus here is on that with the increased agricultural production, therefore people's prosperity increased, and therefore there was a new class of rich people in the society, which is called social stratification. Then it led to sedentary lifestyles as people settled in villages or on their farms. Sedentary means settling in one particular place. It's not like being nomadic, moving from one place to another. So many people settled down because they could now have a stable flow of, food, a stable flow of food production that could be able to sustain them. Not only even food production, but even stability in the economic activities. Then it led to the development of trade as communities exchanged goods and services. Development of trade as people exchange goods and services. It led to the development of government or political organizations as rules to regulate people's behavior were developed. People having a sedentary life, there is need for order. Scientific invention in agriculture also came up as farmers developed better methods of improving production, agricultural production. It influenced development of writing, for which purpose? Record keeping. Next point, it influenced the development of arithmetic or mathematics or geometry for measuring the farms, You know, you need to know the size of your plot that you are using to carry out that particular economic activity or agricultural production. Then it led to the development of astronomy, which determined calendar of events, development of astronomy. You're able to study those weather patterns, you know, to determine the seasons for carrying out agricultural activities. Then it led to the development of religion, because people could consult like the gods of fertility, you know, the rain makers, so that they could be able to understand the seasons. So religion also came in. Improved farming led to increased food production. Improved farming led to increased food production. Then it influenced transportation of farm products. Yes, transportation of farm products, because after you have harvested those raw materials from the farms, there is need for you to transport them to homes, to industries, to the market. So it will be so needless to harvest so much and then you miss out a reliable means of transport. Therefore, through early agriculture, there was need for development of better forms of transport. Then it led to improved living standards due to availability of different varieties of food, improved living standards. So you can see that in this presentation, we have been able to look at question 18 and question 19 of paper 2, KCSE 2022. This has been Mr. Ogada, a teacher of history at Alliance High School, and I keep asking and encouraging you to follow our online tutorial programs through the top-notch educational TV programs in the YouTube, that we may be able to get more of these presentations. Otherwise, stay tuned. I believe you don't want to miss out on the next presentation on part 2 of section B, paper 2, KCSE 2022, History and Government. Thank you and God bless you.